Hello and welcome to another episode of Nightcap with Nightcat, the kitsch-minded show where we talk about toys, boys, and life's other joys. I am your host, Nightcat. Thank you so much for being here, finally back after a couple of weeks off. That last week, where they were re-roofing the entire apartment so I couldn't film here, was literally the worst week of my life. They were here for 4 days, stomping around, pulling up boards, laughing. Who has fun at work? Who? Tell me that right. I mean, I have fun. Literally, it's in my job description. That's what I'm supposed to be doing, is having fun. But still, they were having too much fun for my liking and making it unrecordable in the house. But the good news is they are out of here. We've got a brand new roof and I have a brand new episode for you. By the way, if you didn't go watch the video last week where I did the tour of Salt Lake and just sort of showed some of the interesting places on the Nightcat True Crime Walking Tour that are not about crime, go check it out. It's like the second most recent video on this profile. You're gonna love it. It was so interesting and fun. Speaking of, though, the Nightcat True Crime Walking Tours, check out my new shirt! It's full of serial killer mugshots. Murder! It's kind of ridiculous that I have this big dumb smiley face and I'm like this into murder. Like, I'm too into murder for how silly and smiley my stupid face is. But I love this shirt so much. So a couple weeks ago, me and my friends went to the Curiosities Expo out in Sandy. And we thought we'd see all sorts of cool stuff, and we got there, and it was 98% taxidermy. Which, you know, if that's your thing, awesome. Hey, I found a taxidermy convention you're gonna love. But for me, like, taxidermy's not really my thing, so I looked around and I was like, oh, there's a carcass, and there's a carcass. Everywhere was a carcass, as far as the eye could see. All it was carcasses on wood. But, or in jars, I guess. But I found this amazing shirt. This company, Western Evil, makes all sorts of like serial killer themed shirts. And I saw it and I was like, well, that's my new uniform for any time I go out on a Nightcat True Crime Walking Tour. So if you see me wearing nothing but this for the next few months, that's why. Get used to it. It's my new favorite shirt. It's comfy. It's light. We got all sorts of cool serial killers on here. We got Dahmer. We got the Night Stalker over here. This one is actually Ted Bundy from when he was booked in Salt Lake County. That is literally his Salt Lake County mugshot right there, which I think is kind of fun. There are only a couple that I can't figure out who they are, but I will figure it out before too many more people start asking, because I know most of these people, but not all of them. So got myself a new serial killer shirt. It's basically the only thing I'm wearing these days because, one, it's perfect uniform for the tour, but two, every time I go out, people ask about it, and then I can hand them cards about the tour. So it's just been one big marketing stunt as far as I'm concerned, and I'm having a really good time with it. Thank you so much. All right, without any further ado, let's get into the show. Let's get into the litter box. Ew, what stinks in here? The Litter Box is a part of the show where I go through all of the stupid news and I only bring you back the best stuff. That way you're not wasting your time reading stupid news. And let's get started in the world of fine art. One world that I think is the most ridiculous thing in the world. Fine art I will never understand. I could paint a line on a canvas and people would be like, well, you're not talented, you're not an artist, blah. But a fine artiste does it. A line, one single line on a canvas, you're like, it's brilliant, it's inspired, simplistic, I love it. $500 million, there you go. Fine art is basically like Pokemon cards for rich people. They just buy it and trade it among themselves. It's not even good half the time. I see better art walking around farmers markets. Buy art from your local artist, thank you so much. But the world of fine art just played itself, honey, because a Danish artist was contracted by the Kunsten Museum of Art, and they asked him to recreate a work that he had already done. So the work was called The Average Danish Annual Income. The other work was called The Average Austrian Annual Income. And basically, it was like a side-by-side comparison of how much harder you have to work, blah, blah, blah. And it showed, you know, the cash in one side and the cash in another. Again, it's fine art. So literally, this guy just took out cash and just piled them up next to each other and was like, look, art. Well, this museum wanted him to do it again for one of their exhibits, so they loaned him the equivalent of 85,000 US dollars in Danish kroner in order to put the exhibit together. Well, they sent him the stuff, they sent him the money, and he sent them the work. But when the museum opened it up, there were just 2 empty frames. And he said, I decided to go a different way with the art this time, and this is called Take the Money and Run. baller. Baller move. He's calling it conceptual art. He's saying, yeah, you guys thought you were getting one thing, but I took it and gave you another thing. Me taking it is art. And the museum's like freaking out about this because they're like, we're not a huge museum. We can't just give away $85,000. He needs to give it back. And this guy was like, no, the art was me taking the money. That's the whole idea. You're not getting it back. That would be not art. And I'm just like, you know what? I love where this guy's head at, because obviously he definitely stole that money from a museum. And normally I'm not about taking things from museums because museums are awesome. But he's right. I mean, this is the sort of thing I'm talking about with the fine art world. If everything can be art, then this guy can steal $85,000 from you and it's art. Sorry about it, that's art. Maryland residents have been seeing zebras running around all over town, despite the fact that zebras are not native to Maryland. So I guess at the end of August, a group of 5 zebras managed to escape from a private farm where this farmer has a herd of 31 zebras. I don't know what he's doing, if he's making them for zoos, if he sells them privately, if he's just like really into zebras. Like, have you ever met like a frog mom or a horse mom where like their mom animal is horses and it's nothing but horses everywhere? Maybe this guy's just a zebra mom. So the 5 zebras, they got out somehow and they have been running amok for over a month and nobody can catch them. There are just wild free roaming zebras out in Maryland. I guess they've been spotted a few times, but never in groups of more than 3. But animal experts are like, well, these are herd animals, so that all 5 of them are probably together. You're just not seeing the other ones when the other ones are around. So normally you'll see 2 or 3 at a time just sort of goofing off. And I guess the farmer's gone out and put up feed stations all over in the areas where they have been reported. But still, there are just 5 zebras running around doing absolutely nothing. Let me tell you something about zebras I just learned. I always just sort of thought, oh yeah, a horse with stripes, right? It's just a horse. Like, why can't we put a saddle on that zebra and ride it? Well, I learned recently that zebras are actually more like donkeys, and I don't know if you've ever spent any extended time with a donkey, but they're mean. They're mean, they bite, they spit, they yell, they'll kick you, and they don't want to do literally anything that you tell them. They're like cats. They're like cats with the power of horses. It's horrifying. Terrible animal. Well, zebras are the same way, and they are vicious too. They have such a strong kick. Well, obviously, they're super fast, and they've got a really strong kick because for years, they've been trying to defend themselves against lions and hyenas and stuff. So these things are monsters. Don't approach them. If you live in Maryland and you see a mystery zebra, don't approach it. Call that farmer to come get its zebras. And finally, this is so freaking cool. What remains of a Utah ghost town has been submerged underwater for the last almost 70 years under the Rockport Reservoir. Well, sadly, and this is not the cool part, so sadly, we are facing one of the worst droughts this state has ever seen. I don't know if you've been outside to look at the lakes lately, but they're basically not there anymore. They're dry puddles as far as the eye can see. But Rockport Reservoir was actually built back in the 50s. The federal government bought it and filled it, but there used to be a town there called Rockport. It was called Rockfort during one of the wars, and they renamed it Rockport. It had a bunch of different names. But when the town was alive, there were never more than like 200 people living there at any given time. And in the 50s, the federal government bought all the land, and they decided to turn that into a reservoir and flood the town. At the time, there were only like 70 families living there, which sucks because granted, you don't want to like lose your home. Those 70 families probably loved living there and stuff, but they cleared them out, they flooded it, and you have not been able to see any of Rockport, what used to be Rockport in Utah, since the reservoir was filled. Well, because of the historic low droughts, you can now see the little footprints of what the city used to be. You can see where the buildings were once, like the foundations of all the buildings. You can see a major road. It was just like the cutest, tiniest little town, and it's slowly emerging from under the sea. And I just feel like, I don't believe super big in ghosts. I'm not a big ghost guy, but I feel like if anywhere is haunted, it is the remains of a town that has been at the bottom of a lake for the last 60 years. So crazy. By the way, that lake around this time last year was about 82% full, a little over 80% full. It is currently 29% full. So, hey, if you live in Utah, stop watering your grass, all right? It's almost fall. It is fall. It's almost winter. Just stop watering your grass. Let it go at this point. And I don't know, take less showers. I hate encouraging people to take less showers. I feel like I should be encouraging you to take more showers. I want everyone around me to take as many showers as they can without being a drain on the environment. So go figure that one out. And that is the litter box. All right, I think it's time for us to get into the toy collection and play with something awesome. It's time for Sunken Treasure. Sunken Treasure is the part of the show where we go through my toy collection and we play with something awesome. I'm pretty sure I already said that, but you're getting it twice. And today we're gonna play with another huge part of my toy collection. So when I first started collecting, God, I guess it's only been like a little over a year at this point. What is wrong with me? I go too hard. When I first started collecting, I was just gonna get a couple of Harry Potter things that I liked, that I had when I was a kid, that were important to me. And then I started finding deals on everything, and then I just slowly started collecting all Harry Potter things. Well, I was also dating someone at the time who also liked all of the toys and stuff that I was collecting, and he kind of felt left out that he wasn't also collecting toys. Well, that's how we got into collecting Jurassic Park, because Jurassic Park was a favorite movie of both mine and his. So I started finding this really cool Jurassic Park stuff for him, and I ended up with it. Let me show you. First of all, check out this. This is like the coolest thing. So this is a classic Jurassic Park Lunch Box. It is one of the best pieces in my collection because, one, it has everything in it. It's got the little thermos with the cup in pristine condition, biological material. I know they want it to sound like it's dinosaur embryos, but I think we both think something else when we see biological material on a little cup. That's how I will be transporting my dudes. You could get yourself a free baby pan pizza from Little Caesars, but the coupon expired in 1994, so good luck. By the way, the lunchbox came from 1993. It has literally all of the original paperwork, the order forms, even the tag that came on the box. It has everything. But the best part about this lunchbox, oh wait, my dude collector. The best part about this lunchbox is that on the very front, you'll see a little signature smudge. Yeah, that's Jeff Goldblum. Jeff freaking Goldblum signed this. And I know for a fact, because it's Beckett authenticated, I got a little authentication sticker there that tells me, hey, definitely this was. We can verify that. So Jeff Goldblum touched this with his gorgeous hands. Those beautiful, beautiful hands were on this lunchbox, and now my dirty hands are all over it. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to sully it, Jeff Goldblum, but now it's almost like we're holding hands. You know what I mean? I love you. I love you, Jeff Goldblum. So that's amazing. But then I also found, almost immediately after that, this puppy on Mercari. This is a Jurassic Park script signed none other than by Laura Dern, the Queen herself. Oh my gosh, Laura Dern. You can go through, you can read the whole movie if you ever get bored of watching it 900 million times, which I haven't ever gotten sick of watching Jurassic Park yet. I watch it too many times. To this day, one of the scariest things that ever happened to me was watching Jurassic Park when I was a baby, but I can't get enough. You know how much I like scary stuff. Signed by Laura Dern, signed by Jeff Goldblum, two of the crowning jewels of my collection. And even though they're not technically toys, and even though they're not Harry Potter, I still hold them in some of the highest regard. Anyway, yeah, I bought these for an ex-boyfriend, but apparently I got them in the breakup because they were in the box of my stuff that he decided was mine. So, hey, I'm not going to complain about it. These are really, really cool, so they're mine now. Thanks. And that is Sunken Treasure. All right, let's relive some trauma with another Nightcat Classic Tale. Nightcat Classic Tales is the part of the show where we go through something traumatizing that happened in my life, and we have a little giggle about it, because you gotta laugh through the pain if you're ever gonna make it. And this happened when I was just a wee little lad. And again, I don't think this is where my trust issues come from, but it certainly did not help matters very much. Once you start piecing together all of the Nightcat Classic Tales, you really start to realize what made this. But here's just one of them. When I was a kid, my dad chewed tobacco. He was a smoker for a really long time. He got out of smoking and he started chewing like Copenhagen brand, you know, the put it under your lip, and you go out and you drive a truck and you talk about stuff like this. Well, he had a nasty habit of spitting just into any cups. His water cup, he got a cup from McDonald's, a Gatorade bottle, it didn't matter. He would just go around in that little thing all day, just, oh yeah, I think the Jazz are going to clinch it this year. That's just like, that was my dad in the mid-90s. I remember it so very clearly. Well, one night, we went out and got Taco Bell, which was my favorite. They had a little kids meal where you could get a Mexican pizza, little cinnamon twisties, and a little baby drink, and I loved it because it also came with the Taco Bell dog stuffy. Like, they were doing prizes with their kids' meals. It was amazing. So I get home, throw down my Mexican pizza, eat a whole bag of cinnamon twists without even breathing, and take about half a sip of my Taco Bell drink, and then I went and played, I'm assuming, Super Smash Bros. On Nintendo 64, because it was the time. That's probably what I was up to. When I got back to take another swig of my drink, I took a sip, and this sharp, burning pain hit the back of my throat, and I started vomiting immediately all over the floor, and I was crying. I was crying so bad because I didn't expect my Baja Blast to attack me like that. So my dad runs in, he's like, "What'd you do?" And I go, "I drank your spit, you hillbilly." I didn't say hillbilly. I don't know that was in my... And I am also a hillbilly. That's one of my words that I get to use. Thank you so much. I'm sure I didn't use it at the time. But I told him that I swallowed some of his spit because he spit into my child's Taco Bell drink. And he goes, "You'll be fine," and just sort of left me to figure it out from there. I was like, okay, I think I'll be fine. So now I have a really hard time drinking anything that I left unattended for even a moment, unless it has a firm lid and I know my dad's not anywhere around. And that is another Nightcat Classic Tale. All right. This is normally the part of the show where I either do a warm milk, a good news story to help you get to sleep, or we do Catspiracy Corner, where I go through a little conspiracy just for funsies. But this week, I decided to do something different. Listen, Halloween is right around the corner. As far as I'm concerned, September 1st is Halloween, but I know not everyone observes it like I do. October is happening this Friday, and I want to get you ready with some of my favorite scary movie and scary TV show picks for the season. You should be able to stream all of these. I went through and I double checked. I'm pretty sure you can stream them all. Let's get started with Hulu because they really do have like the best horror selection out there. I've watched a ton of really great stuff on Hulu, including one of my new favorite TV shows. It's called Monsterland. So it dropped last year on Hulu, and it is an anthology series where every episode is different, but they all kind of take place in the same universe, and every episode focuses on different characters, different monsters. I specifically very much loved episode 2 about the school shooter, but it's also more about mental health and the lack of healthcare in this country. And I'll tell you, Monsterland really does seem like it's showing you a monster, a horror, a paranormal type thing, but really it's an allegory on how messed up we are as a society, and you gotta watch. Oh, it's so good. Like, the scariest parts of that show are not what the monsters are doing, it's what the people are doing to each other. You gotta watch it. It's so exceptional. But like, the two best of those would be episode 2, episode 4. Episode 2 is about a school shooter, mostly about mental health. Episode 4 is about an oil executive who gets pinned to the wall because of an oil spill. Oh my god. Monsterland on Hulu. Go watch it. Then we've got The Ring on Hulu. Hey, classic. I've seen it a billion times. If you have a teenager this year who you really want to ruin their life forever, show them The Ring. Though, hold on now. Kids probably don't think The Ring is scary anymore, do they? Have you showed your kids The Ring lately? Tell me in the comments if kids think The Ring is scary, because I remember almost dying. My soul left my body for at least a couple of seconds when I watched The Ring for the first time. It's also really dated. Like, kids aren't watching VHS tapes. And the cordless phones in that thing are like this gigantic. Like, I'm sure it's a lot less intimidating with the old tech, but I don't know. The Ring, I think, is always a classic. It's always very good. It is streaming now on Hulu. Go check it out. All right. American Horror Story. You know what a fan I am of American Horror Story. I'm sure you've already watched it or you've decided not to, but I threw it on the list anyway just because it's all streaming on Hulu right now, including the newest season. So the newest season is called Double Feature, and basically the first 6 episodes were one whole story, and then the next episodes are going to be a whole separate story. Double Feature, 2 stories in one season. And so that should be actually dropping tonight, the second part of this season. But the first half was so good. They really saved themselves after last year's, or the year before, I guess, 1989. What garbage that was. They did a really great job this time around. I also really love, these are my favorite seasons. They might be controversial. Hotel, season 5, my favorite. So good, so scary. It's got Lady Gaga. Love it. Cult season 7, also exceptional. Asylum season 2, very good. And finally on the Hulu list, we've got 12-Hour Shift, the kind of horror that I like. I don't love slashers. I don't love gore porn, just like horrible things happening for the sake of them happening and torture stuff. Like, that's not really my jam. I like monsters if they're done well and they're still a good story and it's not just relying so heavily on the monsters. And I love comedy. I love horror comedies. Campy, silly, goofy, making fun of itself, making fun of the genre. Those are my favorite horror movies. And the best one that I've watched this year is one on Hulu called 12-Hour Shift. And it's about these drug addicts who are also organ traffickers. That's how they're paying for their drugs, but they're bad at it. It is very funny and it is very good. David Arquette's in it, and I like David Arquette. He does a lot of weird indie films. I thought it was going to be bad at first because it is lower quality. Like, it definitely looks like something that they shot on their phone, but the story is exceptional. The actors are really good, and you don't expect that very often from horror. Would check it out. 12-Hour Shift on Hulu, really good movie. I'm trying to get through these as fast as I can because I couldn't pick just a couple of favorites. I haven't on Netflix. Let's go through Netflix. I haven't watched Midnight Mass yet. It's a new series on Netflix, but I hear it's really good and very scary. So I'm looking forward to that one. The Babysitter. Okay, The Babysitter's another horror comedy. When I first saw the preview, the trailer for Babysitter, I didn't think I was going to like The Babysitter, but I was out of stuff to watch anyway. Finally turned it on. It is an exceptional horror movie, but it is an even better comedy. It is very funny. I think that if you like horror comedy, The Babysitter is an awesome choice, but The Babysitter 2, equally good. I don't know how they managed to do it. They made the second one just as good as the first, so go check that one out as well. Haunting of Hill House on Netflix, also, both seasons. There are 2, it's a series, both seasons, very good. It is an anthology. Every season is different. What I've really noticed is that a lot of horror is turning into an anthology. I think what they've realized is that it is really hard to do a horror story that just keeps happening. The same things keep happening and there's never a resolution to it. Like, you can't do a continuous horror story. But if you make every season different or every episode different, you can do a perfect story, wrap it up, and that's really important in horror, is either the bad guy wins or the bad guy loses. You can't just have a bad guy doing terrible stuff and it not go anywhere. So I love that there are so many great anthologies. Haunting of Hill House is one of them. The first season is called Haunting of Hill House. The second one is called The Haunting of Bly Manor. It's the same actors, different stories. Really good. All right, Peacock. We won't get too into it because Peacock doesn't actually have a great selection. I've been pretty disappointed with their horror selection, but they have 2 of my very favorite horror movies. Beetlejuice, which if you haven't watched lately is still hilarious. The special effects are still very good, even today. I love it. And Cabin in the Woods, which is not just my favorite horror movie, which it is, hands down, my favorite horror movie ever made. Chris Hemsworth, before he was famous, they pick apart the genre, they pick apart the movies, they have a million kinds of monsters. You know how much I love monsters. It is one of my favorite movies of all time. Horror genre notwithstanding, I watch that one year round. I think it's so good. So if you have Peacock, definitely check out Cabin in the Woods if you haven't seen it, or check it out again if you have seen it, because it's always good. All right, and finally, we'll go through HBO Max. I know this is running a little bit long, but deal with it. It's my YouTube. I can do whatever I want. HBO Max. I have recently gotten into Lovecraft Country, which came out last year before, I want to say. And it got a ton of attention and fanfare, but I didn't pay any attention to it. And again, looking for something to watch, turned it on, blew my socks off. It's obviously great because it's a Monster of the Week thing where every week you learn about something new about H.P. Lovecraft's monsters, but it's also a black horror. And this new genre of black horror that is really starting to emerge is so freaking good. And that's kind of where Lovecraft Country takes place. It's in the 60s and it focuses on black people, and the really horrific stuff that happens are what other people are doing to each other. It's similar to what I was talking about with Monsterland. Like, yes, there are big, scary, cool monsters and magic and spells and rad stuff in Lovecraft Country. But it's also just fascinating to see racism portrayed the way that it is, because you don't see it done properly very often. And it is done so well in this show. It really illustrates what black people were going through at the time. And it wasn't just, you couldn't drink from the same water fountain, separate but equal stuff. Like, they talk about sundown towns, where if you were black and you were caught outside in that county or that town after the sun went down, they could literally kill you and be fine. That was a punishable by death offense. It is very, 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 very good, and also a little bit scary, and if you like monsters, you're really going to be into it. HBO Max also has both of the new It movies. Both are very good. The first one way better than the second. Explain to me how in the It movies, the first one, the visual effects were stunning. They were beautiful. The kids were great actors. But in the second one, where they focused on the adults with seasoned actors who should be better, the acting was not quite up to par as far as I was concerned, but the visual effects, the fortune cookies and the Paul Bunyan statue very specifically, how cheesy and bad were those? Anyway, but they're both there if you want to watch the It movies, all 8 Harry Potter movies, and the Scooby-Doo movie, also on HBO Max. What you should not watch on HBO Max is their new one, Malignant. Malignant is their new movie. It is the big movie that Warner Brothers was dropping for the horror season. It is about a girl who keeps hearing voices in her head, and she has these bad dreams, and it's causing her to do bad things. And I'm going to spoil it for you, so if you are going to watch this absolute garbage heap of a movie, pause now or skip forward a few minutes. I'll give you a chance. 3, 2, 1. So the whole thing is that she was a conjoined twin in the womb, and her brother, whose face was on the back of her head, wasn't going to survive. So when she was born, they cut the back of her head off, they shoved his face down beneath her skull, and then they covered it. And he didn't die, he just kept living in there all crazy and like spilling horrible ideas in her head, like, kill him, kill him. And at the very end of the movie, this actually looked cool, but the actors had lost me by this point. I didn't care about anybody. Hated the characters. The actors were putting in their lowest possible effort in scary movie acting I've ever seen. And scary movie acting, notoriously not the best. These people didn't even try. They didn't even try to show up and be actors. I felt like they were just reading cue cards. They were terrible. But at the very end, the conjoined brother breaks out of the back of her head and he takes over her body. So he's like running backwards and stuff. And it was silly. It looked good. That was the only part of the movie that looked good. But it was such a silly concept that I couldn't stop laughing. Malignant, I'm thrilled that I didn't watch it in theaters. It is free to stream on HBO Max until October 10th, and then I think it's only in theaters, which, don't waste your money. If you want to watch it, God bless you. May God be with you on your journey watching that movie. It is horrid. It is next level bad. I don't have enough words to describe how garbage that movie was. I can't believe I wasted my time with it. I will put a list of these together on the Nightcat Show website, nightcatshow.com, so go check that out if you want to see any of my favorite horror picks for this season. I'll put the link down in the description of this video once that blog post is done. But that is another episode of Nightcap with Nightcat. Thank you so much for watching. I'm so happy to be back. You can't believe it. I have been begging to do an episode lately, but things just keep getting in the way. I have a lot of really fun stuff, hopefully, that I can be announcing soon with the True Crime Walking Tours. Visit nightcatshow.com for more information about that. I hope to see you out there. October, I think, is going to be a very busy month for me, so it would be so fun if I could have you out on one of the tours. If you haven't been yet, and if you have been, you can come again. Why not? Nightcatshow.com, place to find more information. Until next week, bye! Bye!